Happy April Fool's Day to everyone tuning in. It is funny how today the entire world is obsessed with who can pull off the ultimate prank. What if I told you that the people who have fundamentally changed the course of human history, the ones who achieved the absolute impossible, were universally labeled as fools?
It's a fascinating paradox. We spend our whole lives terrified of looking foolish, caring too much about what people think, following the crowd, biting our tongue when we should speak up. Yet the people who actually changed the world were laughed at, mocked. People thought they'd lost their minds.
Exactly. They weren't April Fools. They were real life, laughed at, talked about fools who just refused to quit. So today we're going deep. We're looking at the fools who changed the world, and why looking crazy for God might be the smartest thing you ever do. Let's start with the OG. Imagine your neighbor out in his yard building a boat the size of 1.5 football fields. No lake nearby, no river, no rain, not even a cloud in the sky.
The psychological toll of that is staggering if you really sit with it. Imagine the sheer isolation. You are out there day after day, year after year, hammering wood together on dry land. Your neighbors are whispering, your friends are staging interventions, maybe even your own family is looking at you sideways, asking if you need professional help. But he wasn't checking the local weather report to validate his actions. He was operating on a completely different frequency. He was building based on a divine directive. He did exactly what he was commanded to do without cutting corners.
And that is the ultimate lesson in obedience, isn't it? Sometimes following your true calling is going to look completely unhinged to people who cannot see the blueprint you were given. You are not building for their applause. You are building for the assignment. Because when the storm actually hits, all those people who spent years laughing are suddenly going to be looking for a seat on that very boat. But by then, the doors are closed.
That's the ultimate vindication, but you have to survive the season of mockery to get there. And sometimes the biggest critic isn't even other people, it's the voice in your own head. Look at Moses. God tells this man to walk into Pharaoh's palace, the most powerful ruler on the planet, and demand the freedom of an entire enslaved nation. And Moses' response, Lord, I can't even speak right. I stutter. Please send somebody else. Can you imagine walking up to Pharaoh like, let my people go? And Pharaoh looking at him like, is this a joke? And Moses staring right back at him like, I ain't playing with you, Pharaoh. And somehow that man with the stutter and a stick freed an entire nation.
That's hilarious. How many of us do the exact same thing? We feel this undeniable pull toward a massive goal, a new business, a creative project, or a leadership role, and we immediately talk ourselves out of it. I don't have the right degree. I am not polished enough. I don't have the capital. But in this historical account, the guy wasn't sent in with a massive army. He was sent in with a wooden stick.
A literal shepherd's staff against the greatest military superpower of the ancient world. It is almost comical. But that is the beauty of it. The ultimate power doesn't require a flawless resume. It requires absolute willingness. Walking into a royal court with a stick looks like the definition of a fool's errand. Yet that specific fool led an entire civilization to freedom. It makes you realize that sometimes you are deliberately sent into impossible situations with seemingly inadequate tools just so it is abundantly clear where the victory actually came from.
And that perfectly sets up my favorite underdog story. You've got a battlefield. On one side, a 9-foot giant in full armor carrying weapons that weigh more than a grown man. On the other side, David, not a soldier, not a warrior, a teenager. A shepherd kid who showed up to a sword fight with 5 smooth stones and a sling. Goliath literally looked down at David and laughed, insulted that they would send a boy with sticks to fight him.
It is the ultimate clash of metrics. The giant and even the terrified army watching from the sidelines were measuring the situation by conventional standards: height, weight, armor, and weaponry. By the metrics of the world, the kid is a dead man walking. But the kid was measuring the situation by an entirely different standard. He wasn't looking at the size of the giant, he was looking at the magnitude of his faith. One stone, one shot, and the giant falls. It profoundly illustrates that the world measures you by what you are carrying in your hands, but true victory is determined by the unseen force that is carrying you.
It gives me chills, and it's the exact same energy with the 12 disciples, like 12 ordinary guys who walked away from their entire lives. Fishermen, tax collectors, blue-collar workers. Jesus, a wandering carpenter, walks up and says, follow me. No salary, no benefits, no plan, no guarantee they'd even make it home alive. And they just dropped everything and followed him.
To the rational mind, that is financial and social suicide. leaving a lucrative tax collecting business to follow a man that the established religious and political elite considered a dangerous fraud? Insane. But those 12 fools completely altered the trajectory of human history. They didn't have political power or immense wealth, but they had the audacity to say yes when it made absolutely zero logical sense.
Okay, but we need to pivot here. We have spent the first half of this discussion celebrating the good kind of fools, the ones who looked crazy but ultimately won. But if we are going to be intellectually honest, there is an entirely different demographic out there. There are the fools who think they are playing the game perfectly, but they are actually losing everything that truly matters.
This is where it gets uncomfortable, but it is so necessary. If the ultimate good requires us to look foolish to the world, then the ultimate evil, or let's just call it the adversary of our potential, has its own roster of fools. And the tragedy is, these people think they are winning. Let's unpack the relationship fool. This is the person caught in a toxic cyclical loop, going back to the exact same destructive partner for the fifth, sixth, or seventh time, genuinely expecting a different outcome.
It is exhausting just to watch. Your friends have stopped asking about it. They just sigh. People aren't even hoping for the relationship to work anymore. They are just hoping you regain your sanity. You break up in January, reconcile in February just in time for the holidays, break up in March, and by April Fool's Day, you are making that late night call saying, I just miss you.
And you call it love, but it is actually just a leash. You are ignoring every red flag, every piece of good advice, and choosing familiar pain over the terrifying prospect of starting over. The adversary doesn't even have to work hard. You are doing the sabotage for him. And it is the exact same mechanism with the financial fool. This is the person living drastically above their means to impress strangers who do not care if they live or die.
Yes, the car payment that is higher than the rent, wearing designer labels to a job that drains your soul. Your credit score is in the basement, but your social media feed makes it look like you are a billionaire on a perpetual yacht tour. You can't afford to invest in your future or give to a good cause, but you will absolutely finance a new luxury watch.
You are literally being marketed to death. A notification pops up on your phone for a 40% off sale, and you completely abandon your financial goals. You are leaving wisdom unread while you chase a lifestyle you cannot afford. And closely tied to that is the pride fool. This one is perhaps the most destructive because it is completely silent.
The prideful, the person who refuses wise counsel because nobody can tell them anything. Friends try to warn them, mentors try to guide them, and their default response is always, I've got this, I know what I'm doing. Meanwhile, their entire life is metaphorically on fire.
And the most tragic manifestation of the pride fool is the one who absolutely knows they are in the wrong, knows they need to apologize but refuses to do so. They will let a relationship wither and die over years of silence because they cannot bring themselves to say two simple words, I'm sorry. You get to win the argument, sure, but your prize is sitting entirely alone at the end of your life. Pride is the ultimate camouflage for insecurity.
That's real talk, but let's talk about one that probably hits every single person listening, the distraction fool. You claim you don't have 10 minutes a day for meditation, prayer, or reading, but your screen time report says you spent 4 hours arguing with strangers in comment sections.
People misunderstand how potential is destroyed. You don't need to be tempted into a massive scandal to ruin your life. Your schedule just needs to be hijacked. If you are kept sufficiently busy, entertained, and outraged by trivial things, you will naturally drift away from your purpose. You will wake up a decade from now realizing you gave the prime years of your cognitive energy to a screen that gave you nothing in return.
That transitions right into the generational fool, the person who builds a home focused entirely on material success, academic achievement, and extracurricular activities, but provides absolutely zero spiritual or moral foundation. And then they are completely baffled when their kids hit adulthood and are entirely lost, anxious, and devoid of a moral compass.
You can't expect a harvest from seeds you never planted. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. But instead, we train them up in Wi-Fi, the latest devices and pressure to perform, and give them no anchor for their identity. Parenting is tough, nobody's denying that. But when a household runs on hustle culture instead of God's word, the next generation doesn't just drift, they don't even know what they drifted from. That's not just a gap. That's a generational cycle of emptiness.
And finally, the Sunday fool, the perpetual consumer of community, the person who hops from group to group, church to church, organization to organization, and leaves every single one because it wasn't perfect. The music was too loud, then it was too quiet. The leadership wasn't attentive enough. Someone sat in their preferred seat.
They are perpetually shopping for a flawless community, which is a mathematical impossibility because communities are made of flawed humans. But while they are on this endless quest for perfection, they end up completely isolated. They call it taking a break, but that break turns into years of living without accountability, without support, and without roots.
So we have to bring this all together. The laughter fades when you realize how easily we slip into these roles. You are playing the wrong game when you stay in a situation you know you were supposed to leave. You are playing the wrong game when you choose a comfortable lie over a difficult truth. And you are definitely playing the wrong game when you keep telling your ultimate purpose, I'll do it later.
Because later is the graveyard of human potential. It all comes down to a fundamental choice. History shows us that the universe or the divine consistently chooses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise and the weak things to shame the strong. The call to greatness rarely comes with a safety net. To accept your true assignment, you have to be willing to look ridiculous.
You might have to start that business that everyone in your family thinks is a joke. You might have to walk away from a relationship that looks perfect on paper but is actively destroying your peace. You might have to be the first one to reach out and forgive someone who doesn't even deserve it. You might have to drop to your knees and admit you don't have it all figured out.
And yes, society might label you a fool for doing any of those things, but I would argue it is infinitely better to be a fool for a profound, world-changing purpose than to be considered wise by a society that is deeply lost. The guy building the boat was a fool right up until the first drop of rain. The man with the stutter was a fool until the empire collapsed. The kid with the rock was a fool until the giant hit the dirt.
So, on this day dedicated to fools, ask yourself whose playbook you are running. Are you letting pride, distraction, and fear turn you into a fool for the world, or are you willing to look a little crazy to the people around you in order to step into the impossible?
Stop trying to make your calling make logical sense to people who aren't meant to understand it. Trust the deeper wisdom, take the risk, and run the play. Every single person who ever changed the world will tell you that the season of mockery was entirely worth it.
What a powerful place to land. Thank you all for joining us for this deep dive today. If this conversation shifted your perspective, share it with someone who needs to hear it, especially if they have been playing on the wrong team lately. Embrace the crazy, go change the world, and we will see you on the next episode.